Hey, good afternoon, New England District Hockey girls. Welcome and thank you for coming to this afternoon. We're trying to keep girls hockey in New England growing, and so we thought we would get together and talk a little hockey in the middle of July. My name is Bill Light. I'm the girls and women's section leader for the New England District for USA Hockey, and it's my privilege to introduce the following people who will be putting together today's presentation. So from USA Hockey, we're going to have Kristen Wright, Heather Mannix, and Roger Grillo. And from Middlebury College, we have a current player, Maddie Light. I'm going to turn this over to Kristen now, and we're off and running.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for having us. We're really excited to see all of you. I see some familiar names in the participant list from previous camps, whether that's at the district or the national camp level. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And while I do that, one of the things I'd like you to do is go ahead and put one hockey-related goal into the chat. The chat is located at the bottom of your screen. You guys are gonna have to bear with me. We've got this great lightning storm going on here, so if you hear it, it's that's what's going on. But yeah, go ahead and type in the chat, which is on the bottom of your screen, hockey-related goal. All right, so we got, thank you, Caroline, for coming in first there. Play at the national level. It's a great goal. Play Division I. Yep, we are going to talk a little bit about that today, Matilda. Keep improving. I love that growth mindset, Allison. That's awesome. Play on the national team, play on USA team, play Division I in college. I love it. Yeah, keep on putting those in there. Those are great goals. I love that some of them are short-term, like keep improving, and some of them are looking into the future. And so we're going to talk a lot about what it takes to reach some of those goals, playing on, for Team USA, playing at the college level during this presentation. And so, it really comes down to those opportunities, right? We have a lot of opportunities available at USA Hockey. I'm sure all of you know about our Olympic team, especially after winning gold in such an exciting fashion in Pyeongchang, and our national team athletes, one of which we'll have on later on this call. We also, though, have our U22 and our U18 teams. And typically, the New England Festival is one of the steps in the process to make it to the U18 women's national team. Unfortunately, Festival was canceled along with all of our national camps, all of our August programming for the U18 level, our Lake Placid camp, our series with Canada, all canceled due to coronavirus situation. But we are planning, as once you guys are all back on the ice playing games, to continue evaluating all of this current player pool, because as of right now, the U18 Women's World Championship is still scheduled for January. So we will be out evaluating players. And we just want to be very, forthright with what's going on there with the U18 process, because I know a lot of you have questions about it. So feel free to ask those in the chat and we can get to them. But also, there's a ton of opportunities outside of playing hockey. I know Heather and I both get to work, and so does Roger, in hockey, whether coaching, doing broadcasting like Kendall Coyne is doing, equipment, hockey ops, video, PR, all of those things. And then we also have the National University team, which is only for our ACHA players. Both Roger and I have been involved as coaches on those staffs, where you get to go to the World University Games, which is really a mini Olympics, and you get to play for Team USA, but you'd be playing at the ACHA level versus the NCAA level, which is really exciting. So, with those opportunities, a lot of you talked about playing collegiate hockey. And we're excited. I mean, the number of opportunities to play collegiate hockey, no matter what level that you're going to be able to play at, have continued to grow each year. We have 187 women's programs. I'm really excited for when we get to 200. But 41 of those teams are in NCAA Division I. And NCAA Division I, really, the difference between that and Division III is mainly the scholarships. The majority of the Division I schools, besides the Ivy League schools, offer scholarships. but the NCAA Division III schools also offer academic scholarships, financial aid, and things about in that manner as well. The time commitment between the two, the NCAA Division I programs definitely have additional things that they do throughout the year. The time commitment is larger, the season is longer than those NCAA Division III schools. And then we have the ACHA. We have over 75 teams in the ACHA, and those are schools, non-varsity programs that provide athletes with, the ability to play at a school that might not have an NCAA program. Some examples would be the University of Michigan has a program, University of Rhode Island has a program, and those schools, some of them offer scholarships for hockey, some of them offer financial aid and other money in different ways, but those are some of the things available to you on that level. And then Heather, do you want to talk about this slide with the players playing from New England?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we have the numbers of players that are playing at the Division I and Division III level that are from your district. So here we have 68 women that are playing at the Division I level. We have 183 that are playing at the Division III level. And so when you think about that, I mean, you all are a huge representation of the NCAA Division I and Division III population. So you have 10.7% of all American players are coming that are playing at Division I come from your district, and 24.2% of all American players are coming, or that play at the Division III are coming from your district. And so you have a lot of opportunities to play at that NCAA level, and girls and women that have come from your district are clearly showing that. So
awesome, thank you, Heather. So we talked a little bit about our women's players that played in the Olympics, and I just want you to go back to the chat and put in there, what did the Olympians in this picture do to get here? What did they do to win this gold medal, both individually and as a team? Perseverance. That's great, Allison. Commitment and devotion, hard work, dedication, training, both on and off the ice, and we'll definitely talk about that. Sacrifice. We sometimes try not to use the word sacrifice. I think there's a little bit of a choice, right? Our athletes choose to put in the time and effort to get better, whether that's making a choice on what they eat, choice on training versus doing something else with their time. So those choices to become better and put in that hard work every day. And so to get to this point, I mean, they all had a different path, right? And they all, really, there's no secret formula to, creating successful athletes. And so Heather, do you want to talk a little bit about what it takes to be a successful athlete in this day and age?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially at the most elite levels, physically, everybody starts to level out, right? You start to get to a point where physically you may or may not be separated very much as you are maybe at the youth level, where you may be one of the best players on your team. When you get to a certain level, physically you start to level out. And so you have this physical and mental aspect of being a very successful athlete at the highest levels. And so one of the biggest things that we always talk about is hockey sense and having hockey sense. What does that mean? I mean, you can be a fast skater in practice, but are you a fast skater under pressure? You can be really good at stick handling in practice, but can you get around and can you, under pressure against opposition when there's conflict involved, can you execute those techniques in a game-like environment? And having that hockey sense is just being aware of where are your teammates, where are your options, where are your, where's the offense coming from, and how are you going to react in that situation, and what do you do to solve those problems within the game? And then also just having that high compete level. This is one of the things that coaches look at, and it's one of the easiest things to pick out in a game-like environment, and in practice even more so. And so a lot of times we see, if you just take a shot in practice and you peel off and you get back in line. Well, where is that compete level? We want you stopping. This is where in practice you start to develop those good habits. We want you stopping in front of the net and trying to bury that puck. And so when you have people come and watch your practices and watch your games, this is one of the easiest things that they can identify is where is your compete level? Because if you want to play at the highest levels, you not only have to have that hockey sense, but you have to have that high compete level. And lastly, the athleticism, which is such a huge part, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but we want you to be an athlete first and a hockey player second. And what that means is we want you to have a wide range of abilities, of movement abilities, because when you can execute a large range of movement abilities off the ice, that translates to confidence on the ice, that translates to being able to, get out of situations or, get into situations and come out with the puck. So we're looking for an athlete first, that well-rounded athlete, and a hockey player second, because when we have athletes, we have really good hockey players.
And that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, it's a fast game, and to keep up both physically and mentally, those are such key points to building yourself as a successful athlete. The other piece that goes into it, is being on your best behavior. We have college coaches tell us all the time, if there are two athletes at the same level, like if that first bullet, you guys are equal, or even if there's an athlete that might be a little bit under, if the behavior and the attitude isn't great, they're going to pick the kid with the better attitude. Again, those college coaches plan to spend 4 years with you. Use a lot of practice time, a lot of game time, time on a bus. They want to be around people that their other players want to be around and that they want to be around. So how can you be on your best behavior? How do you respond to adversity on the bench, right? Are you pouting? Are you slamming your stick? How are you treating your teammates? What language are you using in the lobby with your parents? All of those types of things are what they're watching in your behavior. And then finally, the other piece of successful athletes is good habits. So Roger, it's great to have you on the call as our ADM manager for New England. What does it take to have good habits?
Yeah, I think that's a critical piece. It's consistency. And I think, talking to the athletes on the call tonight, I think what's really important is you never know which shift in your life right now is going to be the one that changes the rest of your life. And you never know who's watching. You never know, who might be evaluating. And so if you can have consistent effort, consistent compete level, and really good habits, and the good habits, there's hundreds of them, but it's the little things. It's the little things that all add up to one being a really good player. And I think the best players that all of us have ever been around, the ones that move on and have success, they understand that there's no shortcuts, that in order to be really good, in order to be one of the best, in order to win a spot on a national team or a Division I team or any college team for that matter, you got all those things that are on the board right now. You got to have those, and you got to have them consistently. And so not looking for shortcuts, and understanding that what you do every day, you're either getting better or somebody's passing you by. And there's so limited spots, especially if you narrow it down to a national team, that you want to be the one that's passing somebody by every day. So the choices that you make and the effort that you put in, that's going to decide the level that you get to.
Thank you, Roger. That really, especially when you're looking at, trying to get to the next level, what it takes is so important. And we talked about our athletes in Pyeongchang, how they got there. And a lot of you put in, hard work, dedication, and that's true. But it's still a journey, and not every single one of those athletes had the exact same journey. Take Maddie Rooney, for example. Maddie never made a U18 team, but she won us a gold medal in a shootout and in the gold medal game in general. But in a shootout, she was a star, right? So everyone's journey is going to be a little bit different. And you might feel like some of your friends and teammates just every day, one step up, getting better, everything's going great. But in reality, most paths are going to be a little bit windy, or my favorite is like chutes and ladders. Improvement really is a series of failures, and that's how you get better, is by being challenged. And so sometimes you're going to have setbacks, and that's okay. And sometimes you're going to make different decisions than your teammates, whether it's choosing a different program for development, whether it's choosing a different university or college level, or even just school in general. So I know Maddie Light is on. She is a player at Middlebury College, I think recent graduate, right, at this point. And she wants to talk to you a little bit about her journey, both in high school and prep school, and also in college, and how, you know, that might affect what you guys see and do at your age.
Yeah, so I am actually a current player, depending on Corona things at Middlebury. But, you know, I think Chutes and Ladders is a great description of kind of everyone's journey, especially in high school. You know, it's a tough path to get to college hockey, no matter which one you take. You know, test scores and grades are really important on top of the athletic piece. So I think that for me personally, I kind of peaked in hockey a little bit later, right? So I was watching a lot of my friends commit to Division I schools at a really young age. And it was definitely discouraging, but I think the biggest thing was that a lot of my role models were, you know, telling me to just keep an open mind. And I actually ended up doing a postgraduate year. And that kind of sent me on the path to Middlebury, which has been an absolute blessing. You know, I think that I had the opportunity to squeeze onto a Division I team and play sporadically, but I knew that I wanted to play a lot, have a big role, you know, have a voice on the team, and that's definitely come to fruition. And that's why I'm so happy that I chose Division III. And, you know, a lot of my friends are very happy with Division I. So I think it's just very dependent on, you know, who you are, but I would just say keep an open mind. The journey is tough, but as long as you continue to be a good teammate, work hard in the classroom and on the ice, I think, you know, can't go wrong.
Those are great points, Maddie, and thanks for sharing your experience, and also saying that, like, everyone, I mean, your friends are happy at Division I, you're happy at Division III, and that path may not look the same for everybody. Another piece of this journey is really taking responsibility for your own development. And all of you are now at the age where we have an expectation that you need to start putting in that hard work and dedication. And I think you guys have been put in this scenario a little bit early and on your own with coronavirus, that you don't have your teams, you don't have summer development programs, you didn't have all of the support you may have had before when it comes to whatever you're doing for your development, on ice, off ice, mental skills, nutrition, because you probably were home and might still be home by yourself trying to do it on your own or doing it on Zoom with your teammates. So we like to ask, what are you doing when no one is watching? Are you doing your workouts in the morning? Are you stick handling? Are you shooting pucks? Right? Are you trying to get better each and every day? Are you being dedicated, right? That's the word that you all put in the chat. But really being dedicated is doing those things, trying to get 1% better every day. And one piece of that is learning how to be a good teammate, right? We talk about, you know, being on your best behavior, but a piece of being on your best behavior is being a good teammate. And Maddie, being a current player in college, having a leadership role on her team at Middlebury, can you talk about what it means to be a good teammate and maybe give them some advice on what they can do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like Kristen said, doing the little things is, and doing them consistently is really important. You know, so showing up on time, making sure that you're listening and you're following instructions, whether that comes from your coach, your captain, even your friends, your teammates, just trying to be as receptive and a good listener. And then, you know, doing everything you can to make your teammates around you better, right? So are you showing up to practice every day, working your hardest? You know, that's something that my coach really has instilled in us, is that as long as you're working your hardest, you're making somebody else better, and that's going to make the team better. So I think just keeping in mind that you can be a great teammate in the locker room, but you can also be a great teammate on the ice. You know, and that comes without saying, you know, taking responsibility for your actions, but also doing those little things along the way.
Awesome. And another thing that we look at, and we want you to learn how to be coachable. So I'm going to pass this one over to Bill Light. Bill, you've coached a long time and probably have a lot of insight on kids that were coachable and some maybe that weren't as coachable. So hoping you can give them some advice on how to be coachable.
Definitely. Probably the hardest thing is to be willing to accept criticism. When we're developing and getting better at what we do, and it's not just being a hockey player, but throughout our lives, even today, for me as in the working world, is we don't do things perfectly all the time. And it's good to be able to look up to someone else, listen to them, and try to take their feedback, hopefully respectful feedback, and apply it, or try to put it into an action that you can do to make yourself better and make the people around you better. I try to get players to think about collectively what they will be as a team. And not everybody wants to think in that way, because we're all on our own paths, right? I want to play Division I, I want to make the national team, I want to do X, Y, and Z. But I go back to a great story. In 1999, the British rowing team was preparing for the Olympics, and they hadn't won a medal since the year 1912. And they collectively got together with their coach in 1999 and said, you know what, we want to do this. Now, granted, this is a group of adults, but the path that they took to get there was very fascinating to me. Is every single day, whatever they did, their question was, is this going to make the boat row faster? So if I eat the French fries, if I skip my workout, if I don't shoot pucks, if I decide that, you know what, it's everybody else's problem, is that going to make the boat row faster? And so in that way, in a roundabout way, it's about being coachable, right? Because that's what the coach is really looking for you to do, is to commit and to dedicate. So ask yourself every day this summer, will this make the boat go faster? And hopefully the answer will be yes. In thinking about that, you also want to think about just every day getting 1% better. So what are you going to do today to make yourself 1% better? I do it at work every single day. What am I going to do? How am I going to improve myself today to make myself 1% better? It makes you a lifelong learner, because we're not going to get to play hockey forever. And so what we want to do is make ourselves better as human beings every single day. I'll leave you with this. This is something that I read every morning before I sit down in my chair and I go to work. Whatever I'm doing, a sense of superiority will make me worse at it. Humility, on the other hand, will make me better. The moment I think I've got it all figured out, my progress is going to stop. Instead, I'm going to continue to advance and improve by reminding myself how much there will always be to discover. I hope you guys have a great summer.
Bill, I love all of the tidbits you just gave us with a story, also the quote about growth mindset and how important that is. So thank you so much. A lot to be taken away from that right there. Another piece of that, you may have a growth mindset, but how do we show that, right? How do we make sure that that's what we're exuding all the time? So confidence is another piece of this puzzle. And Heather, I'm going to let you take this one, since I think it's one of your favorite topics to talk about.
It absolutely is, Kristen. And Bill, I couldn't agree more with Kristen. I sent her a quick text that I love that story. Will this make the boat go faster? It's such a great line. So when it comes to building your confidence, there's a couple of things that I really want you to think about. One of the biggest one is how are you talking to yourself? So what are you saying to yourself after each shift, after each play, right? So say you made a mistake. We all make mistakes. This is a game of mistakes. It's how do you recover from that mistake? And one of the best ways to make sure that you can recover physically is to make sure that you can recover mentally, because the mental aspect and the physical aspects go hand in hand with one another. And so we always talk about, if your thoughts were up on a loudspeaker, what would other people say? What would other people think about what you're saying to yourself? Are you beating yourself up after making a bad pass or after making a bad decision? Or are you saying, okay, next time I'm going to do this. All right, I got this. You got this, right? So you want to make sure that self-talk that's happening inside your head is absolutely, you want to keep it as as positive as possible. You're going to have doubts and you're going to have times where you beat up on yourself a little bit, but it's being aware enough to recognize when it's happening and then shift that mindset. And then the other piece of that kind of goes back to what Kristen was talking about was, what are you doing when no one else is looking? It's that preparation piece. And I think that, we'll touch a little bit more on it from the physical side of it as well, is have you done everything that you can do physically to make sure that you are prepared to be successful in these different situations? I think that, with Bill's response on the 1% better, trying to get 1% better every single day, that means that you're putting in the work, you're putting in that prep work. And when you know that you're doing everything you can to try your best, to work your best, or to work your hardest, then you're going to have you're going to have more confidence that you're out there doing your best. And so just remember that the physical and the mental aspect of hockey, they go hand in hand and they feed off of one another. So just make sure that self-talk that's happening inside your head is positive.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, that preparation piece, right? Keeping that in mind, that if you're prepared, your confidence will be higher. Our mental skills coach, Tip Jones, talks about that all the time.
Hey, Kristen, real quick, oh, you're going to save that for the end? Okay.
If you want to take it now, you can, Heather.
Well, I think so. In my past life, I actually worked in physical therapy, and so working with athletes after an injury is something there absolutely is a confidence, journey that you have to go on. And I think it really comes back to that preparation piece as well, and making sure that you're not trying to make a jump before you're ready to. So it's all about taking those stepwise progressions and easing yourself back into it, and then putting yourself before you're actually in a game, that you've put yourself in game-like environments and that you can feel confident. We worked a lot with ACL injuries. And so we would start really slow, with simple exercises, and then we would start doing much more athletic movements. And so it's gaining confidence in whatever area was injured. That's something that, it's a slow progression, and you want to make sure that you put yourself in those game-like positions and environments before you actually go back to playing. You'll have that confidence then.
Yeah, Heather, I think another piece of building your confidence after an injury is surrounding yourself with your teammates and your coaches. And right now that might be virtually on, Snapchat and FaceTime and all of those things, but don't be afraid to communicate how you're feeling about your injury so that people around you can support you and help you get back. I think we spend a lot of time internalizing a lot of those fears and not talking about them when there's a lot of people around you that will be your biggest cheerleader to help you get back into the game, whether it's coaches, parents, teammates, siblings, other friends not playing hockey, things of that sort. So let's pass it over to Roger. Roger, I'm going to let you combine these two, learning to make decisions, but how that relates to picking the best program for their development. First at the younger age levels, because we do have 14, 15-year-olds on the call, but then even if you have any advice for them as they're looking to pick a program in college, but focusing on the youth part first.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that's made, and this is more for the younger athletes that are on the call, I would say that really the mindsets, particularly here in New England that I see, is that everybody's kind of focused on putting themselves what they think is in the best environment based on the competition model, meaning that who they're playing against, who they're playing with, what the record of the team is, has the team done well nationally, regionally, and that kind of stuff. And I think not enough emphasis is put on making a good decision and putting yourself in the best environment that's for you. And in particularly, what's the practice and training environment in that program? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to, all the goals that you guys, that the athletes put in the chat room to start out when Kristen first asked you, those were all individual goals. Those weren't team goals. And so you're going to move forward as an individual, not as a team. So if there's an overemphasis in the environment and culture that you put yourself in, this goes for all ages now, that is completely team oriented, and there's not enough emphasis on your individual development, because every athlete's needs are going to be different based on where you're at physically, emotionally, cognitively. And so making a really good decision that fits you, fits your social, your athletic life, your academic life. Maddie made a great point. I coached, I was the head coach of Brown University for 12 years. And I can tell you that the stronger you are academically, the more options you're going to have. So it's a really important decisions that you have to make, that's going to put you in the best place to reach whatever aspirations that you have as an athlete. And really stepping back and making sure that you're in a safe, positive, productive environment is really, really critical. And really a big part of that's what happens every day when you step through the front door. Is there a quality off-ice program? Is there a commitment to me as a person? Do they really care about me as a human being and as a young female athlete? And I think all that kind of stuff is really critical. And people get caught up on the record and the how many scouts are in the stands. Believe me, at this point in recruiting, having done it for 30 years, if you're good, they're going to find you. So really make a decision on what's going to make you a better person at the end of the day. I think that's really critical.
Thanks, Roger. And your comment about off-ice segues really well into the next piece, where Heather's going to talk a little bit about off-ice training, starting with physical literacy, and what that really means for you getting better.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, so this kind of goes back on what I've touched on a couple of times already. And so physical literacy is something, it's a term that you may not have heard of as of yet. But so basically what it is you want to, just like if you were, trying to learn how to read and write, you have to learn your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3s before you can do more complex things. Physical literacy is becoming an athlete before becoming a hockey player. It's, you see certain like little things like this on the slide, which you may think like, this looks a little bit silly. How is that going to make me a better hockey player? What it's going to do is it's going to make you a more proficient mover. And so this also goes back to the confidence piece. So when you have more athletic skills and you have a wider movement vocabulary, then you're more confident when it comes to on the ice and making decisions. You're more confident in yourself that you can go into the corner and come out with the puck. And so doing things that may not be hockey specific off the ice, so learning how to juggle a soccer ball, not with one foot, but with both feet, or learning how to, juggle 3 balls in the air. It's going to work on your hand-eye coordination. So things that may not be hockey specific are going to make you a better athlete. And so when you have, again, the competencies to move, you're more confident when you're actually put into those environments where you have to move. And whenever we're more confident, we always play a little bit better, we feel better, we're more motivated to continue to practice off the ice, which again is going to have this feedback loop of making you an overall better hockey player.
Thank you, Heather. And that physical literacy really lends itself to your ability to build strength at the next level, right? Being able to, you see in the bottom left-hand corner, you see them doing strength exercises, but that physical literacy is the base at which will help you build strength and get faster at the older age levels. I'm going to stop sharing my screen there because I think our special guest can touch a little bit on some of these off-ice habits once she's on. So I'm excited to introduce Kendall Coyne Schofield on the call. She is a 2-time Olympian, including being part of our gold medal winning team in Pyeongchang. She's part of the PWPHA. She is a broadcaster. Kendall, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've been a part of 7 world championship teams, winning gold in 6 of 7, I believe, of those, which is very exciting, talented all around. So Kendall, thanks for being on the call tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to talk to all of you, especially because I know I didn't grow up in the New England region, but I did go to Northeastern University. So I do feel, a little bit of home and a little bit of my heart is definitely in New England and still is and always will be. I'm coming at you from Chicago right now. But I want to say thank you so much for having me. And, going back to that strength and conditioning piece and how important that is. I know I can't go into too much detail because, we're tight on time, but I love to tell this story, and I know Kristen knows this story, but my first camp with Team USA, I was 15 years old, and it was in 2007. We went to Lake Placid, New York. I came out of the national camp, it was the inaugural year of the under 18 women's world championship. So no one really knew what to expect. No one really knew what was going on. And we got invited to this camp as a part of the first U18 3-game series team. And I went into that camp super excited. I was the only player my age, so I was obviously extremely nervous, but just to have the honor to wear that jersey, I was so excited. But coming out of that camp, we got an evaluation, and it had a scale of, good, great, excellent, poor, fair, etc. You guys have all seen a scale like that before. And while I remember that evaluation very vividly, I still have it to this day. I was ranked 1 as a forward. I was excellent in almost every category, which is something to celebrate, right? You're so young and it's exciting, but there was one category for me that was poor. And if I could ask you girls, I know I can't right now, but I would ask you to guess which category that was. And it was strength. And that was on the far right side, poor. And it's that X still sticks in my head to this day, because in my opinion and what I live, every single day, I heard someone talking about it. I think it was Bill, being 1% better. That is something that we are constantly talking about as a national team. We are working to be 1% better in the 4 areas that are our focus. And those 4 areas are mental, physical, tactical, and technical. Sorry if I'm being repetitive, if you've already said this and I missed it, but those are the 4 pillars that we focus on. And you guys know, the quote, if you have a stool and you have 4 legs and one's broken, what's going to happen? You're going to fall over. It's the same thing in terms of your approach. And obviously one of those categories being physical, strength and conditioning, lies in that category. And so for me at that young age, when I came home and what could have been a great review, what I could have put away and been like, oh, I did great. I looked at it and I was distraught. I was heartbroken. At that time, I went to my parents. I said, I need to get stronger. I need to get faster. I couldn't keep up with those girls. My strength is not good enough. I need to get better. And so it's something that's been an emphasis, for me every day. And what I was saying before was something that I focus on and that I can control every single day I wake up. I can control my attitude and I can control my effort. And so can you. Whether it's, your attitude is, you're having a bad day. How can you change that mentality to spin it and to be positive? Obviously life's very short. And I think all of us are, going through times we never expected these last 3 months, whether we're not on the ice, we're not in the weight room, and, our routines are completely different. Our environments that we're used to being in, we're not in. And so it's how do you make the most out of the situation to be the best version of yourself that you can be, and ultimately the best teammate in our game that you can be, to obviously create a successful environment. So those are, some of the things that I focus on. And, during quarantine, I've been fortunate the last about month or so, I've been back on the ice and in the weight room. But while I couldn't be for about a month and a half, I was in my basement working out every day. And I have to say my neighbors definitely thought I was crazy, running sprints outside, and being in Illinois, trying to find a hill to run. It's challenging in itself, but I found a little one in the backyard. And but whether it's focusing on lower body strength, 1 leg workouts, core strength, my typical week, I've been on the ice 3 to 4 days a week, in the weight room 5, since being back to somewhat normal. And that's usually my daily routine in the summer. And I think something that I always think about when people get really, really stressed about testing in the national team environment, because it is stressful. But I always think to myself, like, it is such a privilege for someone to want to sit there with a clipboard and monitor my pull-ups, monitor my chin-ups, and really monitor how much I've, taken ownership for my development over the last, 4 months or whatever it might be leading up into that camp. And so, I'm excited every time I go into camp to be able to showcase, how much work I've put in, because, that's something that I can always control, is how hard I work, and I take very seriously. And my last point to all of you for those of you that have seen me play, maybe some of you haven't, I'm not the biggest player on the ice. I'm actually typically the smallest. And, that was always an excuse for others when I was growing up, going through the recruiting process, whatever it might be. Oh, she's too small. But for me, that was never an excuse for me. And I will never let it be an excuse for me. You can say I'm too small, but that doesn't mean I can't be the strongest. And that's something that I always focus on, to this day. So as even though Lee Steckline maybe tower over me on the ice and my best friend off the ice, there's no reason that I can't be as strong as Lee Steckline. And I think all of you can have that mentality, and you really need to focus on, controlling what you can control. That's something that we always say with the national team as well. So I'll take your questions if you have some, and go into anything else that you might want me to go into, Kristen.
Awesome. Thanks, Kendall. I've heard the story a lot about your experience in Lake Placid, but I love it every time because you came home and you were willing to work on your weaknesses, which is hard. And it's really hard at that age. So I think it's a great story for everyone to hear. We do have a question in the chat, so we'll start with that. Can you go into some more detail on what your weekly workout schedule looks like? What you're doing on each day?
Yeah, so my workouts are broken up into linear and lateral workouts typically. So whether it's 2 upper body, 2 lower body, and then in the middle is a conditioning day. And then I think as I've gotten older, which I really struggled with when I was younger, when I was your age, I was always go, go, go. If there was 3 ice sessions I could be on, I was on all 3 of those ice sessions. If I could be at 2 workouts a day, I would be at 2 workouts a day. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that I really need to listen to my body. And whether, my body's telling me, hey, slow down, or you can go a little bit harder, nobody can really tell you that. You really have to learn your body better than anyone can tell you. So typically, it's a lower body day, an upper body day, a conditioning day, and then again, a lower body and an upper body. And then I typically condition just about 4 to 5 days a week. And then again, skate about 3 to 4 as we're starting to get back into normal. But again, I think it's easy to go to the workout, or it's easy to go to the weight room and to do your workout, but it's, how are you doing that workout? I think I might've heard it earlier. It's about the details. What are what details are you focusing on throughout your workouts? Are you going through the motions, or are you focusing on each rep, each detail, rep after rep, trying to get better week after week? You can't just go into the weight room and say, I did a workout. You can't do that. You won't make it to the next level. You gotta care so much about every single detail. When you approach your workout, when you approach your on ice sessions, especially now more than ever before, because I know our ice sessions are so scarce with, everything going on. And so, what you put into it is definitely what you get out of it.
And Kendall, when you were working out, when you were say 15, once you started working out at 15, were you in the summer? I know the summer training load and the in-season training load are different. In the summer, were you working out those 4 to 5 days a week as well?
Yeah. So when I was 15, like I said, that was the first time I put on my Team USA jersey, and this whole new world of Team USA was, introduced to me. But I played travel softball until my sophomore year of high school. So typically in the summer, I was playing a lot of softball. If any of you play travel softball on here, you definitely know that you are playing, 6 to 8 games a weekend. And me being here in Illinois, we were traveling whether to Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, local states around here to play. But for me, like, even if I had softball practice, that wasn't an excuse. That wasn't considered my workout because I knew I needed to do other things that were more geared towards hockey versus softball. So I would oftentimes do workouts in my basement, whether they were, one-legged squats, push-ups, sit-ups, sprints. My siblings and I love to race each other. And I know Kristen talked about, identifying your strengths. I think everyone on this call, if you've seen me play, everyone can sit here and say, yeah, your strength is speed, but you really do have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what are my weaknesses, and focus on those weaknesses. Because to be honest, training and focusing on your weaknesses is extremely frustrating, but that's what's going to make you a better hockey player in the end. So when I was your age, I would say I was doing, more body weights and body weight workouts, and I was just being introduced to weights. I have one quick story, if that's okay, Kristen.
Of course.
Again, in 2007, my second USA hockey camp was in Ann Arbor, Michigan with the women's national team. And I was invited as a U18 player to fill in for the spots of the college players who were attending the Four Nations Cup. So I was just going to the camp and leaving. So this is really the first time I was with the senior players like Julie Chu, Natalie Darwitz, Angela Ruggiero. And I was just enamored. I couldn't believe it. I don't even remember what anyone said. I think I just stared at them. They probably thought it was super weird because I was just like, this is the coolest. This is just so cool. And our strength coach at the time had us pass a weight in a circle, and it was a 45-pound plate, and we were actually in our hockey skates. So I knew in this moment, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm so embarrassed. I can't do this. And I turned to Julie Chu, who's one of the greatest leaders and people that hockey has ever seen. And I said, Chewy, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I'm embarrassed. My face is turning red. I can't do it. And she just looked at me. She goes, okay. So the weight comes over. I have my hands above my head, and this thing would have crushed me if Chewy didn't reach her hands over and and kind of assist me, but assist me enough to be like, hey, you need to be better next time. You need to do this next time. And that was another moment I went home and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not good enough. I need to get better. I can't even lift a 45-pound plate over my head. But it was another one of those eye-opening moments where I really learned that, this is the next step. I need to take this next step in my game. I need to figure out how to lift, how to be stronger. And so I did seek out a strength coach for 6 weeks, and he really taught me my foundation of strength and conditioning and that was at 15 years old.
Thanks, Kendall. Those details are helpful, especially as they're trying to figure out this training and figuring out this training at home. You definitely mentioned some exercises that they can do at home, single leg strength exercises, lunges, squats, push-ups, abs. I think those kind of answer some of the questions in the chat. And then, we didn't get to the nutrition piece, and we know that's so important because it's that fuel for you as an athlete, and we need to feed our bodies the right fuel so that we can perform at our best. And so you have a couple questions in here about what do you eat when you're training, and then your pre and post practice or game food.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want to rephrase that first question. What do you eat when you're training? It shouldn't matter if you're training or not training. You should be eating a clean, well-rounded diet no matter what. And I think during quarantine, that was extremely challenging for me because I wasn't exercising and wasn't burning as many calories, and I wasn't exerting as much energy. And if you know me, I exert a lot of energy. I wasn't exerting as much energy as I normally do because we couldn't go anywhere. I wasn't skating, and I was working out in my basement, and I was doing everything I can. We had an Aerodyne bike here, which if I look at that thing one more time, I'm going to go crazy because I feel like I lived on that for 3 months. But what do I eat? I would say I eat a well-rounded, clean diet. I'm not someone that, I'm very strict. I think it's about a 90%, 10% balance. So 90% of the time I'm making sure I'm eating clean, whole foods. And then 10% of the time, trust me, if you know me, I love my ice cream, and you cannot stop me from that. So, whether that's, once a week, once every 2 weeks, more times in the summer than obviously in season because, we're not traveling as much, and I'm very particular about what ice cream I eat. However, just to give you, I guess, a quick glance into, some of the foods that I eat, whether I work out, I have like an overnight oats, a yogurt, a bar, and a fruit. And then I go work out, I come home, I'll have some egg whites with some fruit and some vegetable, along with a protein shake. And then from there, depending on what time I'm skating, I'll have a smaller lunch, whether it's a salad with some chicken. I'm always chowing down on fruit, to be honest. And then after skate, I come back, I try and get, something in me quickly. And then I make a dinner, which typically has a protein, a fruit, a veggie, a carb. And then I think I'll eat something small before bed, not something too much unless, if I'm not hungry from dinner, then call it a day. And what was the second question? Sorry.
Any pre or post practice or game foods that you eat?
Pre or post, this is again, talking about controlling the controllables when you're with Team USA, or whether, when you start playing college hockey, you can't control what your meals are. Usually those are provided to you by your team. So you get comfortable with, whatever is being served, and you don't really get that picky, especially when you're with Team USA and you're traveling overseas. Sometimes the food that gets put in front of you is something you've never had before, and you have no idea how your stomach's going to react to it, but it's your fuel and you have to eat it. So you get less particular about those type of things. But if I had a choice, my pregame meal would be the standard chicken and pasta. I prefer gluten-free pasta. I'm not gluten-free, but I think my body digests it faster, and I get a little bit more energy out of it. And then my post-game meal, whatever is going to restore and refuel me for the next day. I'm not, again, that particular, but I could do anything. I love when we have like a taco fajita type mix. So you can make like a taco salad, any type of meat, and you can do what you want with it. Our nutritionist knows that's my favorite.
Can't go wrong with tacos. I feel like that's might have been a quarantine meal of choice of mine. So it's a good one. You talked about the 4 pillars, and one of them being the mental pillar. And Eleanor asked, how do you train your mental game at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. With the national team, we've been very, very lucky. We've had 2 sessions with Tiff Jones, which I think Kristen mentioned, during quarantine, which was really, really helpful, because obviously we're all really struggling right now. We're again, I think for me, what's most challenging are not being in the environments that I know I'm usually in and that I can be better in. So every day when I would wake up and go in my basement, I would struggle with the fact that I didn't think I was, reaching my potential, that I was getting better and being the best I can be, because I didn't feel like I had those resources. But at the same time, I knew I was doing every single thing I can. I was putting the details and the work in with everything that I had in front of me. But I think another way that for all of you that you can focus on your mental game is also watching hockey and analyzing hockey. And I know some of you might have film, might not, of your previous seasons, or if you can, if you can't, but watching that film and seeing, where can you be better, and what can you do here, what can you do there, what went well when you're watching that. And then the other thing too that I've been doing during quarantine is I've been reading a lot of autobiographies of other athletes. I think there's so much power and knowledge in learning about other people's stories, and especially in our world, elite and professional athletes. And so I've been learning a lot from reading those stories. And I think that's, those are some ways that I've been focusing on my mental training, during this time.
Those are all great tips. One last question for you, Kendall, in here. Christina Allard asked, if you could tell your younger self one thing through all of your experiences, what would you say?
Oh, if I could tell myself one thing, to enjoy them. It goes by so fast. And I think when I think about myself putting on a pair of hockey skates when I was 3 years old, I never envisioned or imagined myself traveling the world, meeting my best friends through hockey, going to college and playing hockey and getting an incredible education, and going to the Olympic Games and so much more. And all of those things have happened along the way. And I would tell you, all of you girls on the call right now, whatever experiences you are going through, or you're going to have, or you've had through hockey, make sure you make the most out of them, you enjoy them. Because it is the greatest game on earth, and I couldn't imagine my life without hockey. And it's not necessarily the wins and the losses that I remember. If you ask me to tell you the scores of all the Olympic games that I've played in, I couldn't do it. But I remember the memories, the moments, and my teammates. And I think that's what I would encourage all of you to really take out of the game, are those people that you meet along the way, the experiences that you have, because they're going to help shape you into the person that you will become. And I know hockey has done that for me, for sure.
It is a great sport in that way, right, Kendall? The people you meet, the people you get to spend that time with, and those awesome experiences. So thank you so much for being on tonight. I'm going to pass it over to Bill Light to close us off, but we really appreciate your time in addition to the other panelists' time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Good luck, in the future, girls. I hope to cross paths with you in a rink somewhere soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kendall. I want to thank everybody on the panel for joining in and making New England hockey better today. Roger, Heather, Kristen, and Maddie, thank you so much. New England District girls, I hope you have a great summer. Continue to work hard, and we may try to do something like this again in the near future. I appreciate everybody, and have a great evening.